Hi, I'm Shaun Bunn. I'm the Managing Director of Empire Metals, and we are a copper gold explorer, mainly focused in Australia.
Shaun, good to have you back on. A bit of news yesterday we want to talk about, which is Pitfield. We sort of loosely touched on it last time. So, what are you? Are you going to be a copper company now, or are we sticking with gold?
Oh, we like copper. We like both, but I think copper's I won't say flavour of the month, Matt, but uh, as people will be aware, there's a huge demand growing for copper. Copper prices are forecast to rise. In fact, a recent report suggests new supply has to come onto the market, something like 10 million tonnes of copper to come on in the next 10 years. So there's a lot of price pressure, upwards price pressure on copper, and I think a lot of the majors are going to be out there looking to secure, highly prospective, large-scale copper projects, and I think we've got one at Pitfield.
Okay, well let's talk about that in a second. But given the reaction in the market to that news, which because it's super early stage, copper seems to be getting a good hearing out there at the moment. Because as you say, there's not a lot of it, and the forecasts suggest that we're going to need a heck of a lot more. And if you compare that to announcements around gold at the moment, don't seem to kind of get the same leverage. It's almost like gold is out of favor at the moment. Does that, well, one, do you agree with that? And two, does that kind of sway your thinking in terms of where you allocate? I think you had £3 million last time we spoke, but are you going to change your focus and kind of maybe step back from Eclipse and Dalby?
We won't step back completely from those from that highly prospective area, and I don't think gold. I wouldn't write gold off. Obviously, I think gold has. It's no longer in the limelight. It's no longer front and center stage, I think, and that's driven by this huge interest in the battery metals, the rarest lithium, chain supply arguments. So people are running around looking for lithium projects. They're running around looking for rare earths. So there's a lot of hype about those types of battery elements. Copper, up till now, hadn't really been, equated with that type of industry. But people are starting to wake up to the fact that, without copper, you don't have electric vehicles, you don't have these systems that we're talking about. So, copper's emerging now as a really, green friendly metal industry to be in, and I think that's driving a lot of the big majors to push into copper or expand their copper portfolios.
Right. I mean, look, and I don't mean to be glib about gold. It's part of the ecosystem for sure, but there's a little bit of people living in the moment with their phones and their the infrastructure that's built on some of these battery metals, cars, houses, etc. Versus gold, which is kind of investment into the future. So I appreciate there's room for both, but I just wanted to sort of see and get back to the question, which was like, is it going to change the way that you allocate your capital going forward, given the reaction in the market? So is that going to happen?
I think we've got to focus on this new copper, province, this giant emerging giant at Pitfield. I think. We won't abandon our gold prospects, and as I said, we've got drill-ready targets. And the good thing about gold is it's a pretty basic, simple mining industry to get into and make money from. Copper's a bit of a different challenge, so we don't want to be painting ourselves into a corner and having not having the optionality to bring even a smaller scale gold project into production. I think we've got to juggle those two balls for a while, and we're well placed to do that. We're well funded, so it's not a shortage of resources, either funds or people. I think we can manage those two side by side for the next 12 months.
Do you think there's a little? I know you're the new guy on the block. Well, you've been there a year, right? But you're relatively new guy on board. do you feel that you do need to, given the exploits in Georgia and Austria, etc., you do need to be sort of seen as kind of finisher completers with the gold, not get distracted by the copper. There's a bit of that.
There's a bit of that, but bear in mind, I look at these things as where will we get the most value for the, not for the, for minimum expenditure. I don't think we do our shareholders any justice by not investing the money into the ground. That's what it was. That's what we raised it for. However, you got to look at your discovery costs. We touched upon this last time, Matt, when we talked about the amount of money that was being punched into some gold, prospects, and really nothing was, nothing of scale was immediately coming out. So, let's be sensible, I think, about where we spend the dollars, and if we can advance a copper project to the point where we've got a major like BHP or Rio starting to get, pay a lot of attention to us, then I think we've done a great job for shareholder value.
Okay, well let's get into the RNS you sent out there. You've used today the word giant. It's in your press release, giant. What lends you to believe that this is indeed a giant and it's not just promotional talk?
Well, a giant first and foremost is a appropriate geological term in the industry, particularly when you're dealing with these massive provinces. So we're not talking about necessarily just one mine, we're talking about a region. So you're looking at the copper belts of Central Africa, the big copper projects on the down Chile and South America. So there is a history around the world of these things forming, and they are massive. So what we think we're sitting on here is a basin scale. This is a regional event, well over 40 kilometres north-south. We've identified a magnetic anomaly from our recent geophysical surveys, and what we've completed in the last few months is this electromagnetic survey that picks up all the conductive rock and the variation across the basin. And those two things have combined. They merge into a picture of something that is, a big geological, I won't say freak event, but it's a massive event that's occurred within this basin. And we believe that is the moment in time when, the copper-bearing solutions would have been punching up into this area and been trapped near surface in this sediment, in this, strata-bound sediment-hosted copper project.
Right. So you're seeing as a profile which you've seen elsewhere, and you're talking about a regional event there. 40 kilometers is a lot of ground to cover. It's a lot of money to be spent if you are to try and understand this. So how does a small company like yourself move this forward? I appreciate you've got at or near £3 million today, but you're going to need a lot more of that going into the future. So how do you move this forward?
The positive news, I think, that we are now starting to pull together and put into a proper geological database is that this has attracted majors previously. CRA have explored there extensively, BHP, companies like Kennecott and Mount Isa Mines even prior to them. There's a very significant database, geochemical mapping, RAB drilling, there's diamond holes. So we're pulling all that together into a picture that shows that there's a massive copper anomaly across the 40 Ks. There's zinc, there's silver, which is always a good indicator with copper of this sediment-hosted, strata-bound copper deposits. Those two go together very nicely. And there's also a couple of very high nickel intercepts that are really interesting. So what we've got is a pre-existing database that we hadn't, up till now appreciated the extent of. We will go back over the next, say, 3 to 6 months, we will be doing surface surveys, IP surveys, induced polarization to pick up more conductors. And we'll be doing more surface sampling, geochemistry, trying to pin down where these features are coming out, where we can best locate the drill rigs. So I don't imagine I will be sitting there announcing a drill program in the next 6 months. It is still too early to advance to that stage. However, the story will continue to grow. This giant is slumbering and it will awaken eventually. So we've got to be there when it pops up.
Right. Okay. So it's super early stage, but what can you tell us? So you get a sense of, right, okay, this is potentially a huge district, right? But in terms of grades, I know you mentioned some rock chip samples, 2.3% copper, which is obviously great news. But what else can you tell us in terms of the data in and around the area, maybe from other copper producers? Gives a sense of what we could be looking at.
Well, the basin is very unique in the sense it's what they call a closed basin. So it's never been sort of open to the ocean and sea and that. So whatever fluid events occurred within this basin has sat there and brewed away for a long period of time. If you look to the immediate east, there's a world-class talc mine and has been in operation for 60, 70, 80 years. The important thing about talc is it's formed from dolomite rock by a large-scale oxidized fluid event. So it's the same type of event that we're saying has formed this massive magnetic anomaly. So that just gives you a feel, if you like, about how big this whole system could be. The closest I can draw your attention to is the Patterson Range, which is much further up into the Kimberley region of Western Australia. West, where again there's a neo-Proterozoic system, of rocks. There's the Telfer Gold Mine, Telfer Gold Copper Mine, the Nifty Copper Mine, Rio up there producing or starting to look into producing from a copper project they bought. Greatland Gold is in that area. So, I mean, you're talking about some discoveries, in the copper industry now really starting to become, figured by size as being very significant copper producers in this part of the world. But having said all of that, the best example I can give, the listeners is the Russian project, Udokan. It's the largest copper deposit in Russia. It's the third largest copper deposit in the world. And it is exactly the same type of host geology that we're seeing at Pitfield, at our project. So it's a sedimented, hosted, strata-bound copper deposit. It has magnetite. Wherever there's copper, there is magnetite present. We've got magnetite. There's these carbonaceous type rocks, epidote has formed. So there's all these things that indicate basically the same chemistry is formed in our little, in our basin here in Western Australia. So I'm really excited by what's ahead. We've just got to get out there and prove the theory and deliver the copper.
You do, and if you're going to focus on that, like I said, it's a big land package. Right. So in terms of obviously cash preservation in this market, I think your shareholders agree is sensible. But at the same time, they also want you to get on with it. If it's as exciting as you say, they want you out there and doing stuff. But it's a kind of slow process, is it? What you're about to get into? In which case, where do the headlines come from?
The work that we will do will continue to work towards this. What I say is this proof of concept. Once we get more confidence in the fact that this chemistry that we're talking about, this geological event has occurred, then it's a matter of hunting down where the deposits have formed. So we're not talking about a copper deposit. We're talking about multiple copper deposits spread across this 40-kilometre zone. And, as we start to hunt those things down, surface expressions, a rock chip sample at 2.3% and 18 grams per tonne of silver is extremely anomalous. What the hell is that? So, we know where to go and start looking. To be honest, there's an 8-kilometre target that we've already identified to the north near the Mount Scratch area where that chip sample was taken based on our radiometrics and our conductivity survey, the electromags. So there's already, targets that we can zero in on. But 8 kilometres is a long stretch to put a drill rig on. I've just got to get on the ground and start to pinpoint this. So I understand that people want drills and they want drill results, but I equally understand it's a tough market, and I want to be there, as I said, when the giant awakes. I don't want to sit there and go, oh hell, somebody else has come over the top of us and we just ran out of steam. I'm going to be there at the end, chipping away at this until we can get a giant copper project up and running.
Right. Okay. So you're conscious of capital preservation and doing things the right way. You don't want to run out of cash and be I guess cash constrained is never a good place to be. Fine. So that's good news on the copper. I appreciate this. The kind of not refocusing, but the focus on that. Can we talk about the 2 gold projects that we discussed last time? You came on. It's obviously Eclipse and Jindalby. You're going to sort of not quite as focused on those, but they still have some real value for you because they're more advanced in that sense. How do you deal with those things? If you're excited about copper, do you advance those 2 gold projects along to a point where maybe someone else picks them up? Maybe you can monetize them somehow or use someone else's balance sheet to move those things forward? Or are you not quite there yet?
We're not quite there yet, but it is certainly one of the possible scenarios that we might go forward with in those areas. The reason I say that is that when we last spoke, we were pulling together a fairly big drill program, about the 5th I think we had done at the Eclipse, and I think the 2nd we had done at Jindalby. The idea of those were to try and extend the known mineralisation along strike and at depth. And whilst we continue to hit mineralised systems, we're hitting this shear and we're hitting gold every time. I think 80% of our holes have gold in them. We were not reporting these massive high-grade stellar intercepts that we picked up the first time round at Homeward Bound. So there was a mixture of technical success but market disappointment because they wanted to see 5 metres at 10 grams and we gave them 2 metres at 2 grams or something. So you've got to take that into account. What we've got is a complex, nuggety, yes, high grade, but sporadic system of gold veins that we could arguably drill for the next 5 years and keep hitting gold and going further and further out. But do we ever get to a stage where we could say, hell, there's an economic, there's enough gold there and enough grade to go underground and make this a profitable mine? And my fear, if you like, Matt, is that trying to prove up a gold mine in an area that's so difficult to explore, I don't. That's just being stubborn in that sense. You're just saying, I'm going to be right. I've told everyone I'm going to do this. I'll just keep throwing money at it, and I'll keep reporting drill results, and everyone will go, oh, another set of drill results have got gold in it. When are you guys going to start mining the bloody thing? So I've got to weigh that up. I think it's a highly prospective. I think it's got excellent potential. But do I think that now that there's a clear runway to production in that particular area, it's not so obvious to me.
Right. But it might be with someone else's balance sheet.
Correct. It could be an add-on project, or even a smaller player who wants to go in and do a small scale mine. And there are plenty of people out there scratching around making small amounts of money doing that. So I think it has value in our portfolio. I will do another drill campaign as we move into the next phase to try and to build up on that high grade gold story. But I'm not rating that now as a company maker, our flagship anymore. I don't see that I don't have any evidence to continue to go back to the market and say, wow, this is going to be a massive gold mine.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. Okay, as you say, you're not being stubborn about it, and so many companies are and need to be, because it's the only thing they've got in the portfolio. But at the same time, people want to go, well, you have spent a ton of money there. How do you get that back at the very least, or how do you make some money? So you're going to do another little drill campaign, and just if you don't mind describing, to what end? What's the picture that you're going to need to paint for someone else to come in and go, do you know what? It's great for us as an add-on, or it's great for us as a standalone small, potential small mine. We'll take it from here. We'll give you a free carry of, I don't know, 20, 30%. Or some kind of NSR over, or however you want to negotiate that. But what precisely do you need to do to paint that picture more clearly for someone?
With respect to, so there are two elements to the Eclipse Jindalby story. In Eclipse, that's the one that we've got resources around, and we've got plans, and we've got mining studies complete, environmental. We've even done a flora survey. So that's ready to go into into a small scale mining project. You could it's a mining license, so the permissions and permitting is in place. That's a really nice, attractive asset for a small group to take on, mine it themselves possibly, and make some money. For us, it didn't meet our hurdles, our risk profile and the amount of effort and reward that I saw coming our way. The Jindalby option is a bit different. There's a lot more upside on Jindalby because there are multiple high-grade targets that we haven't even put a rig on yet. So what we have to make a decision is, do we go back in and keep pounding away at Homewood where we hit the initial high grades, or do we step back again and have a look at a couple of the other targets? So I've got a couple of areas that I think are anomalous. I think they warrant a small drill program, and I'm talking about spending a couple of 100,000 Aussie, nothing more. Get out there, spend a few £100,000 max, if you like, and then I can walk away knowing that we've done everything we can to get the maximum value out of that asset for the shareholders.
Okay, understood. Refreshingly honest. Right. Well, I think that's the update. So go find some copper, please. So would be the thing I say to you.
We are. Well, there's a couple of other people shouldn't overlook the fact we've got a couple of other irons in the fire, so to speak. We've got the Walton and Staveley projects. They're coming through the final approval process. Again, that's a logical sequence of work, and we don't have to spend a lot of money up front to get on the ground there. So they will come through next year. And we're looking very seriously at what we do with those precious metal assets in Austria are still on the books. We spoke about that last time. I think we're coming to the conclusion that they're a non-core asset. We can do a sale arrangement on that and use those funds to keep the boiler burning.
Name of the game. You've got to be in the game to play the game. So, look, Shaun, appreciate the update. Do stay in touch with us. I'm sort of intrigued as to how you go about these things, decision making, and obviously this new focus on copper and proving that up to be what you hope it can be. Best of luck to you.
Okay, thank you.